What if the atomic bombs were never dropped on Japan? The last days of World War II were a chaotic plunge for the Empire of Japan. The people of Japan were being decimated by constant American firebombing and attack. It seemed like the country was on the verge of collapse. Then came the two atomic bombs, Nagasaki and Hiroshima, killing even more hundreds of thousands of innocent people. Finally, the Japanese emperor surrendered, and the country was taken under control of the United States. General Douglas MacArthur took control of the island nation and put in place a bunch of programs to help Japan that resembled Roosevelt's New Deal. Today, Japan is a thriving, modern economy with the 11th largest population in the world and one of the longest life expectancies. However, all of this could have been radically changed if two bombs were not dropped. On August 6th and 9th of 1945, the US dropped two atomic bombs, weapons that had not been seen in the history of the world. On the same day as the second bomb was dropped, the Soviets declared war on Japan and invaded Manchuria. However, this didn't go too far since the emperor surrendered on August 14th. This raises some interesting questions. What if the Soviet advance was not halted by the dropping of the atomic bombs? What if the United States never dropped the atomic bombs on Japan? Let's say that the Manhattan Project to develop the nuclear bomb fails. It is not developed in time. By the time a nuclear bomb is developed, if at all, it is too late to use. The war is over. So what would the history of the world look like? Well, for one, the Americans would have to launch a full-scale invasion of Japan. Or would they? The so-called Operation Olympic, which was the US invasion of Japan, was scheduled to take place in November. However, Stalin was prepared to invade the islands of Japan within 10 to 14 days of the dropping of the atomic bomb. Since the Japanese had pulled back most of their troops to defend the homeland, and most were concentrated on the southern beaches in case of an American invasion, the North and Japanese-occupied Manchuria in China are basically empty of resistance. The Russians plowed through the weak Japanese soldiers and stopped basically whenever they ran out of fuel. So things were not going so well with the Russians. If the US were never to have dropped the bombs, the Japanese had two options. One, they could wait it out longer and then fight the Americans in the planned Operation Olympic. Or two, they could surrender before the Russians got any closer. Stalin had plans to invade the northern Japanese island of Hokkaido in the morning of August 24th, 1945. This, of course, never came to fruition because of those two giant atomic bombs. So would the Russians have been able to invade Hokkaido and take over vast swaths of Japan in this timeline? Perhaps, but this is not probable. You see, in recent years, some historians have looked at the evidence and concluded that the atomic bombs were not the true reasons for the surrender of the Japanese. They instead argue that the Japanese leadership were terrified of a potential Soviet invasion. This actually makes sense if you look at the dates. The US dropped the atomic bombs on August 6th and 9th. The Soviets began their push to Manchuria on August 9th. Japanese surrendered a few days later, although not officially until September 2nd. So the timing matches up, and the Japanese were terrified of the Soviets. Also, the atomic bombs had given them a motive to latch onto, so the Japanese people were completely berserk over the surrender. You see, by pretending that the miracle weapons had indeed devastated Japan, when in fact American firebombing had killed many more people, the Japanese leadership couldn't blame their loss of the war on the bombs, and instead pretend that they were the victimized nation. So without the atomic bomb, the Japanese people would be much more outraged and shocked at a Japanese surrender. The emperor would be in a tough spot here, without the dropping of the atomic bombs, but I think he would prefer surrendering before the Soviet invasion got too far. So the emperor still surrenders to the US, fearing the Soviet mistreatment and invasion. Imagine that you are the emperor of Japan. Most of your cities are destroyed, where people are dying, and there's great suffering among your people. You know that you will lose a war. Would you surrender rather than bring more suffering among your people? This will largely continue as it did in our timeline, without the devastation of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. Stalin would not be able to invade the islands after the surrender of Japan. His plans would be scattered. I don't see a North and South Japan emerging from this, simply because the Japanese were more keen to surrender to the Americans before the Russians got too far into their land. Also, they were on the verge of collapse anyway, even without the bombs, and would have likely surrendered. In this timeline, there will be much more chaos and attempted coups than in our timeline, since the Japanese people would be very angry at surrendering for no apparent reason. In our timeline, the atomic bombs provided that reason, when in reality it was likely that the Soviet invasion was the true reason. So we could see several coup attempts against the emperor. Even in our timeline, a coup did take place, although it failed. So that concludes our atomic bomb scenario. Thanks for watching and make sure to subscribe for more great content.